I feel the need for speed. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Two very famous and awesome movie quotes, both from movies that are in my top 5 American military movies. I'm Chris Casey, and this is Sea to Shining Sea. Welcome to Sea to Shining Sea, episode 2. I'm going to talk about my favorite movie genre, even though it's not really a genre. It usually falls under the action movies. Once in a while, you'll see war and westerns thrown together. My top 5 American military movies. All I love, have seen multiple times. As I mentioned there on the onset, 2 awesome quotes from 2 movies that are featured in my top 5. One very influential in my enlisting into the military. I might have mentioned that in the previous episode in my Veterans Tribute. Thank you to those who listened, and I hope you enjoy this episode just as much. The American military movie, there are so many out there. I love military movies from the Civil War to World War I to World War II, Vietnam War. I mean, any war that's been in our history, there's been a movie made about it. Having to put this to just 5 movies is very hard to do, let's put it that way. So, I mean, I could do a top 100. And out of those 100 movies, yes, they are ones that I've loved, that I found interesting, that I appreciate. But these top 5 are all movies that I could watch at any time, movies that I enjoy, might have meant something to me, depicted history in a way that we felt like we were there. Moving forward, here we go. My top 5 military movies here on Sea to Shining Sea. Number 5. This first movie on our list is the one and only Top Gun. Yes, Top Gun, if you have not seen it, is about the Top Gun Naval Fighter Weapons School, where the best of the best train to refine their elite flying skills. When hotshot fighter pilot Maverick, played by Tom Cruise, is sent to the school, and his reckless attitude and cocky demeanor put him at odds with all the other pilots, especially the cool and collected Iceman, played by Val Kilmer. But Maverick isn't only competing to be the top fighter pilot. He's also fighting for the attention of his beautiful flight instructor, Charlotte Blackwood, played by Kelly McGillis. So if you haven't seen that movie, hopefully you'll hear this and say, oh, what an awesome sounding movie. What an amazing movie. And I tell you what, it was released 18 May of 1986. Yours truly had just turned 15. I saw this movie and it was like, wow. Yeah, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. I got to be around fighters like that. And it just put me into a world that I wanted to be a part of. And I'm glad it did. Yeah, this movie was full of stars at the time. Tom Cruise was at the height of his 1980s. This was what launched him into superstardom. He'd been on like Risky Business. He'd been on All the Right Moves. Maybe that was another movie. And he'd been in Outsiders. This movie really put him to superstardom. And for those of you who are a fan of this movie, guess what? In 2020, we're getting a Top Gun sequel. Yes, a long time in the making. But 2020, Top Gun Maverick, featuring Tom Cruise. If you've not seen the trailer, I recommend going on YouTube, checking it out. It looks amazing. The cinematography, great, awesome. Of course, Kelly McGillis playing his love interest, Charlie. Val Kilmer, this was one of his best roles as Iceman. Who could forget Iceman? Of course, he played Batman and he played Doc Holiday in Tombstone, two of his other major roles that I would say are big for him. But nobody forgets Iceman, and I'm hearing that he's going to be coming back for the 2020 version. Anthony Edwards, talk to me, Goose. Talk to me. So many quotes from this movie. But Anthony Edwards from here, he went on to play in ER, pivotal role there, and has been in other parts. I've seen him in a few movies here and there, but I think this was kind of his biggest role. Tom Skerritt, who's been in movies and TV shows for years. Michael Ironside. Tim Robbins was in this movie. Clarence Gilliard Jr. was in this movie from Walker, Texas Ranger. So this had a wonderful cast. Incidentally, this was actually Meg Ryan's first role as well. So why does this make my top 5? Well, probably because of what it really put in my brain as a 15-year-old, that I wanted to be a part of something a lot bigger than me, that I wanted to be carry on the legacy of serving in the military. And this was a poster for the Navy, but I ended up in the Air Force. But what the visuals, it was just, in 1986, this movie, The Flying, is just a adrenaline-filled movie that, of course, the 15-year-old's going to love. And I fell in love with it. And to this day, I can watch this movie anytime, any place, anywhere. Of course, I own it. I could stream it. There's so many things from this movie. It's in my top 5 of all time. So that is what, it's not number 1 for a lot of reasons. It is not, it's a fictitious movie. It's not a true story. I love history. So that's probably why it's not number 1 on this list. But just the taglines. You could talk to somebody my age. We could talk to each other and say, because I was inverted. That's one of the funniest lines from the whole movie. Another one of the lines from the movie that I love, and I know I'm kind of rambling, but I just love this movie so much. When he asks for a flyby and he says, negative Ghost Rider, the pattern is full. I've said that 100 times, if not 1,000 times in my life, that yes, negative Ghost Rider, the pattern is full. How could you not love that? Just a great movie. I hope if you haven't seen it after hearing my 10-minute spiel on it here on Sea to Shining Sea, that you give it a chance. And I will definitely, when the new movie comes out, talk about it on here. I'm excited. It looks so good. And with today's cameras and CGI that we did not have in 1986, visually, this movie is so stunning. And I'll tell you what, when surround sound and stuff came out, to be able to put this on and watch it, oh my goodness, the sound editing, everything in this movie was just wonderful. So enough of me gushing and being nostalgic over Top Gun. Let's move on to the next one. Hopefully you've seen Top Gun. I would love to hear your comments. What I'd like to do is, after every movie, I will tell you, you could tell me your comments. Say, hey, Chris, that was my favorite movie too. I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me on Twitter at ChrisCasey71 and reach out to me. Say, hey, Chris, I listened to your episode, and I'll tell you what, I love Top Gun too, and I'm excited to see Top Gun in 2020. So Top Gun, ladies and gentlemen, number 5 on my American military movies list. Number 4. Number 4 on my top 5 American military movies list is, yes, a courtroom drama. I love courtroom drama. Novels, movies, the thriller, the intense, the mystery is another genre that I love. But this puts my favorite genre of military movies with a mystery and a thriller and wraps them all up together in a nice little perfect package. Number 4 on my list is A Few Good Men, released in 1992, December 9th of 1992, directed by Rob Reiner. This movie was Lieutenant Daniel Kaffee, played by Tom Cruise, and I promise this is not a top 5 Tom Cruise movie list. He just happened to be in 2 of them. He's a military lawyer defending 2 U.S. Marines charged with killing a fellow Marine, Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba Although Kaffee is known for seeking plea bargains, a fellow lawyer, Lieutenant Commander Joanne Galloway, played by Demi Moore, convinces him that the accused Marines were most likely carrying out an order from a commanding officer. Kaffee takes a risk by calling out Colonel Nathan R. Jessup, played by the one and only Jack Nicholson, to stand in an effort to uncover the conspiracy. Yes, A Few Good Men. Have you seen it? What a wonderful movie. A courtroom drama. For the most part, half the movie takes place in the courtroom, and this movie being laden with famous actors. Of course, Tom Cruise, right around that same time, the early 90s, he was still riding the high from movies like Top Gun. Jack Nicholson, enough said. Jack is great. He's been in so many great movies. The Shining, Chinatown, The Two Jakes, so many. A Hollywood icon, Jack Nicholson. And this was one of his best roles, if you ask me. Colonel Nathan Jessup, you do not like him. You don't want to like him. And he makes sure you know it. And the quote at the beginning, "You can't handle the truth," one of the best quotes in movie history, if you ask me. Kevin Bacon in this movie. Underrated in this movie, if you ask me, Kevin Bacon. I love Kevin Bacon all the way back to Footloose, but he's been in some great movies. He was underrated in Apollo 13 as well. Another one of my top movies. Did not make this list because it really wasn't military, but Demi Moore, of course, has been around for a long time. This was one of her best roles. Perfect group of actors in this movie. I would say it was an ensemble. Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer Sutherland was rather young in this movie, but this was before Jack Bauer. Kevin Pollak, who's a great comedian, but he was actually really good in this role. A little underrated as well. J.T. Walsh played, he's a famous character actor. I'm sure if you knew the name and took a look at his face, you're like, oh, that guy. Of course, Christopher Guest, he's a character actor as well. Several people. There was Noah Wiley, who went on to ER fame, is in this movie as well. It's a great movie, great courtroom drama that, again, another movie that I could watch anytime. Preferably, it's not on quite often, and it's not really out there to stream. It's one I should probably buy, since it is on my top 5 military movie list. But it kind of gives you, as I mentioned in the Veterans Tribute, we talked about the UCMJ, our law as veterans, and this really, really lays the UCMJ out there. These two gentlemen, Marines, are charged for murder, and they're in a military court, and military law is a little bit different than that in the civilian side of things. So we kind of get a little view of how that goes. And so that is one thing that really drew me to it. And of course, courtroom dramas, well written, just perfect, spot on performances. So yeah, that is why this is number 4 on my American military movies list. A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Number 3. Number 3 on my American military movies list is Lone Survivor. In 2005, Afghanistan, Navy SEALs Marcus Luttrell, played by Mark Wahlberg, Michael Murphy, played by Taylor Kitsch, Danny Dietz, played by Emil Hirsch, and Matthew Axelson, played by Ben Foster, deploy on a mission of surveillance and to take out Taliban leader Ahmad Shah. Though spotted by goat herders, Luttrell and his team decide not to kill them. But one of the Afghans alerts a group of Taliban fighters to the invaders, and a terrible battle ensues. SEALs find themselves hopelessly outnumbered and outgunned. This 2013 American biographical military action film is actually based on Marcus Luttrell's book, which I have read, of course, set in the war in Afghanistan. It dramatizes the unsuccessful mission, Operation Red Wings. What a great movie, well written, to get to know these Navy SEALs before they go on to this mission that just went south really quick. Mark Wahlberg plays the lead character, Marcus Luttrell, who is the lone survivor. I recommend the book, Lone Survivor, written by Marcus Luttrell. He talks about how he became a SEAL, and how they were like family. It's just a wonderful book to hear his side of surviving such a horrible operation that went south really quick. This movie, visually stunning, almost too stunning, and it really puts you in the action. As I mentioned earlier in this podcast, movies that I really love and are in my top 3 are ones that make you almost feel immersive, like you're in the battle, like you're with them, to kind of give you better appreciation for what they do. And this is a true story. The true story, the historical knowing, and it wasn't a good thing. It was not. This movie is not a happy movie, but it's a movie everybody needs to see to appreciate those who put on the uniform and do jobs like the SEALs do every day, and that these SEALs did in 2005. This was directed by Peter Berg. He's directed several other movies, Deepwater Horizon. I think he's done some TV shows as well. And as I said, it was based on the book Lone Survivor by Marcus Luttrell, who also was helped with Patrick Robinson as authors. If you're a fan of American military movies, I do recommend this movie. Like I said, even though it's not a happy movie, you do meet these gentlemen and you will feel happy that they raised their right hand and they decided to serve their country, and we thank them for it over and over again. Navy SEALs, wow. There's pulling no punches in this movie. You kind of learn at the beginning of the movie what a SEAL goes through to get to where these gentlemen are. And again, like I said, Mark Wahlberg, great performance. His cast of characters. The other gentlemen on his squad or team, Taylor Kish, Emil Hirsch, Ben Watson, all great as well. We feel when the bullets rip through them, when they get hit, when they fall, all these things. Very, very realistic in this movie. I'll tell you what, when I left this movie, everybody in the theater was quiet. It was out of respect for who we saw on the screen, and they actually showed video clips and pictures of the gentlemen lost, the soldiers lost in this battle, in this operation. It's a bit humbling, patriotic, real life in your face movie. But as an American veteran, I felt proud to watch that, and I thank those who gave their lives for this operation to keep the Taliban at bay. And anyway, I don't want to get choked up. I just thought that is number 3 on my list of American military movies, Lone Survivor. Before we move on to our top 2 here of the American military movies on Sea to Shining Sea, I'd like to stop a minute and do a little public service announcement. It is December that I'm recording this. If you're out and about in your location, wherever that may be in the United States, or if you are in the United States, please don't forget the Marine Corps Reserve and the Toys for Tots program. The basic mission of the Marine Toys for Tots program is to collect new, unwrapped toys and distribute those toys to less fortunate children at Christmas. The primary goal of the Marine Toys for Tots is through the gift of a new toy to help bring the joy of Christmas and send a message of hope to America's less fortunate children. And this hits us right here at Sea to Shining Sea. I know I've bought a toy and contributed to our local Toys for Tots in my community. If you happen to listen to this before Christmas, or don't forget next year, I know a lot of Toys for Tots campaigns actually go year-round. So toysfortots.org to find your local campaign. Thank you, and my tip of my cap to the Marine Corps Reserve and all of those who do what they do for the Toys for Tots. I've actually been a part of it in my community, and it brings a smile to a child. And if anything, that is what Christmas is all about. The Marine Corps Toys for Tots. Thank you. Number 2. Number 2 on this American military movies list is Saving Private Ryan. What an amazing and epic military movie. Saving Private Ryan, Captain John Miller, played by Tom Hanks, takes his men behind enemy lines to find Private James Ryan, whose 3 brothers have been killed in combat. Surrounded by the brutal realities of war, while searching for Ryan, each man embarks upon a personal journey and discovers his own strength to triumph over uncertain future, honor, decency, and courage. This movie was released July 24th, 1998. I would call this probably the granddaddy of all war movies, American military movies. Of course, it starts the whole movie on D-Day, and it's breathtaking, if you want to call it. I actually got a chance to see this in the theater, and my jaw dropped. The realism of Normandy, we got to see how brutal it really was. A lot of this, World War II especially, is romanticized and in movies, and it doesn't really see the brutality and the things our guys really dealt with, how the injuries and the death, and it's in your face, it's real. It's probably one of Spielberg's best movies. To me, there is not a lot of movies like this out there. This movie, to me, as a veteran, it gives me the utmost respect of what happened in Normandy. Those who do follow history would know how brutal it was. And I think while this is a fictional story, it is a bit of a historical fiction because this really happened. Anyway, this movie, to me, number 2 on my list. It's just great. Taking a look at the cast. Look at this cast. I talked about an ensemble cast earlier with A Few Good Men. This one, you've got Tom Hanks. Who doesn't love Tom Hanks? Tom Hanks is one of my top 5 favorite actors of all time. And from Forrest Gump to Apollo 13, what does he have? 2 Academy Awards. Wonderful actor, still doing great. Just played Mr. Rogers this year. Played Sully Sullenberger. Tom Hanks, great actor, plays Captain Miller, of course, that is the head here. Tom Sizemore, who's always seems to be in a military movie. He's in another military movie that I really like. It didn't make my top 5. It would probably been 6 on the list. Black Hawk Down. Barry Pepper. Barry Pepper is actually going to be in another movie that I'm going to talk about here. Just not too, number 1. Barry Pepper, great actor. Adam Goldberg. Vin Diesel is in this movie. Giovanni Ribisi. These are all guys that if you've seen their face, you might know their name. Character actors. Probably one of the biggest names. Matt Damon. Yes, Matt Damon's the Private Ryan that they're looking for. Ted Danson's in this movie. Paul Giamatti. Dennis Farina. And the list goes on. Just a ensemble cast, and well done. You feel like you were in France looking for Private Ryan through this entire movie, and we were lucky to get the heck off the boat and into the beaches and into the inland after this movie. It is a very, very long movie, quite long. I believe it was 2 hours and 49 minutes, and at that time in 1998, that was a long time to be in a theater. But this movie doesn't slow down. You are always going somewhere, always doing something. And the battle's just amazing. I recommend this movie to anybody. Again, this is another movie that I can watch at any time. Surprisingly, I don't have this movie in my collection. Why, I don't know. I might have had it on video cassette at one time, but I've never got it on DVD. So anytime I get a chance to record it, DVR it, or find it streaming, I try to save it. But Saving Private Ryan, one of my favorites here, American military movies on Sea to Shining Sea. Number 1. Now for my number 1 military movie, American military movie, is We Were Soldiers. We Were Soldiers is based upon the best-selling book We Were Soldiers Once and Young by Lieutenant General Harold G. Moore, retired, and journalist Joseph L. Galloway. This compelling war drama depicts the true story of the first major battle between the United States and the North Vietnamese forces. It is a film about uncommon valor under fire, loyalty among soldiers, and heroism and sacrifice of men and women both home and abroad. It dramatizes the Battle of Lo Drang on November 14th, 1965. We Were Soldiers was released on 1 March of 2002. Falls under the action, drama, and history. Yes, this was a true story. As I mentioned earlier, historical movies I love, especially if they're close to the actual history. This movie, again, not a happy movie. Not a happy movie at all, because we kind of got our tails kicked at this battle. Really the first battle of the Vietnam War. And actually, Lieutenant General Moore, Colonel Moore at the time, the Air Cav, the helicopters, that is where this pretty much it gives you the depiction of how things started, Colonel Moore. And this cast, oh my goodness, another ensemble. Kind of a theme here. These movies that I love, I don't know whether I like ensemble cast or just whoever put these movies together really knows what they're doing. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you can enjoy a movie that is so sad. But again, it puts you in the fight. The entire time, you learn there's 2 parts of this movie. Being number one, I'm just going to say, as a veteran, I could appreciate these guys. During the Vietnam War, they're training. They're knowing they're going to war. They know something's coming. And Colonel Moore is doing his best to get these people prepared. And I'll tell you what, before they leave, the speech that he makes, please look at it on YouTube. It is a great speech. Probably one of Mel Gibson's best performances giving that speech. Check it out. We find all these, we find about their families, where they're coming from, where they're training. The second half of the movie is the battle, and the battle that seemed to last forever. And when they got there, and they were pretty much ambushed, and just thousands and thousands of North Vietnamese soldiers just coming down on them. Again, you get to know these characters, and they're not coming home. And it kind of hits you right in the middle there. And knowing these gentlemen aren't coming home, and they're actors. There is so many actors in this movie. You're going to go, I know that guy. I know that guy. Oh my God, I know that guy. So the lead character, Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, is played by Mel Gibson. One of his best performances, to me, out of his career. His wife, Julie, is played by Madeline Stowe. You might know who she is. I can't really think of another movie that she's been in. Greg Kinnear plays Major Bruce Snake Crandall, who pretty much leads the Air Cav team, the helicopters in and out. One of my favorite actors of all time is Sergeant Major Basil Plumley. Sergeant Major. Oh, yes. He steals the show with his one-liners. But Sam Elliott, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I love Sam Elliott, from Tombstone to The Ranch, with currently on Netflix. He plays a sergeant major, and he does not have a mustache in this movie. Chris Klein, you might know from American Pie fame. Kerry Russell, who's actually in the newest Star Wars movie. I'm excited to see that. She was Felicity back in the day. And guess what? Barry Pepper. Barry Pepper was in Saving Private Ryan. So Barry Pepper's in my top 2 list here. And then Ryan Hurst, if you're a Sons of Anarchy fan. Yeah, he played Opie in Sons of Anarchy. He's in this movie. Just so many others that Clark Gregg from Marvel, Agent Coulson, he's in this movie. John Hamm is in this movie. So, like I said, an ensemble cast that is just loaded with people that you know, familiar faces, but just kind of an in-your-face depiction of a battle. Again, another battle, another operation that just went awry. And I like the fact that we're putting this into film. Well, it's been a long time. It's 17 years now, which is hard to believe that this movie came out in 2002. And we have lots of military movies every year, but ones that stick with us. This stuck with me. Not knowing a whole lot about the Vietnam War, just kind of what I learned in high school. But in 2002, finding out about this and then actually reading the book later, great depiction, great movie. And I have the utmost respect for everybody that stepped on the battlefield that day and everybody after that. So those are my top 5 American military movies. Again, number 5 was Top Gun. My movie that catapulted me into the Air Force, I guess you would say. A Few Good Men. Great courtroom drama. Love it. One of my favorites. Lone Survivor. A sad, sad story, but something that we all need to see as Americans. Saving Private Ryan. Epic war movie. Granddaddy of them all. And We Were Soldiers. We Were Soldiers, #1, with Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore and the battle that he led. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I love talking about movies, so I plan on looking at movies down the road. I enjoyed doing this episode. I'm so excited to be a podcaster. If you like movies as much as I do, join us at the concession counter with my friend David Musgrave on the People vs. Happiness page. You can find us pretty much anywhere. Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, just People vs. Happiness, the concession counter. I'll be there with Dave Musgrave. We're going to talk about movies every episode. We usually have a good time doing it. But so movies are my thing, but this was an American-themed, American military movies. I thank you for listening. Please join me next episode. Next episode, I'm going to talk about the history of American football. Yes, American football. We all love football, whether it be pro, college, high school. I just plan on taking a look at it. I hope, like I said, you enjoyed this episode. You can find me. Give me a shout. Send me a tweet at ChrisCasey71. And I look forward to speaking with you again. Again, I will come out with an episode every month until my schedule allows me to put out more. But hopefully monthly episodes to start with, and then we'll go from there. I'm Chris Casey, and this has been Sea to Shining Sea. Have a great day, but a better tomorrow. God bless the United States of America.